Now let's talk about some formulas. So one thing that is kind of handy to know is if you are ever writing something in a format that Excel would otherwise recognize as something special. Like if you start with an equal sign, it assumes you're trying to write a format. If you start with a plus sign, it assumes it's either, if you start with an equal sign, Excel assumes that you're trying to write a formula. If you start with a plus sign, it assumes you just mean it's a positive number, and so on like that. So what I've done here, in order for you to actually see the formulas on the screen, is that I put an apostrophe in the front. And so that works universally. Anytime that you don't want it to automatically assume the format, you just put an apostrophe in front of it, and then you can type in. It's like automatically it keeps it formatted as text. So these are the formulas we're going to start with. So sum, I use sum constantly. How do we use sum? So I'm just going to put it right up here. Let's say I want the sum of this whole column here. So that let's say I want the sum of this whole column here. That's a lot easier to do. Equals, I type in sum, open parentheses. And then it's going to sum or add up all the cells I click. So as long as I don't have the formula here, I can click this, and it's just going to add up everything in this column that it recognizes as a number. If you have a space in one of these columns, if you have a letter in one of these columns, it won't recognize it as a number, and it won't work. It adds up everything that is a number. Close parentheses, hit enter, and now I know the total of this column is 49,553. Now, in my case, this doesn't mean a lot because there's various currencies, but for the purposes of this formula, you can see how it works. Now, that wouldn't work if I put it here, because we're going to have what's called a circular formula where it wants to also add up this cell. You can't add this cell to this cell. So if you hit enter, it's going to give you an error. So we don't want to do that. So if we wanted it up here, we could do equals sum, and then we just manually highlight everything that we want to include, close parentheses, and hit enter, and now that works. Let's say I only want to add up some of these numbers. I can just click the numbers I want to add up, and I can put commas between them, not plus signs, but commas, because the sum is, writing sum is instead of a plus sign. The other option, if you don't want to use sum, is you can just do plus, plus, plus. You could do just this, plus this, plus this. That also works. That's also fine. The sum lets you just highlight groups of things. And what's nice about that is that if you add something in the middle of this section where I want it to be added together, let's say I insert a line and I put in here another 200, it automatically includes this because it's within the range that I've determined. But I try to use formulas whenever possible, because the beauty of formulas is that if you change one thing, the number automatically updates. So if this cell needs to change, if I find that I actually paid $70 for Zoom this month, then the sum will automatically change. And that won't do that if you've used a calculator and typed in the number. The other thing that I saw somebody doing recently was coloring her negative numbers in red and her positive numbers in green. And you don't want to do that because Excel is still going to add them all together. It doesn't realize that you meant for the red numbers to be negative numbers. You want to make sure you're actually using minus signs. And then once you have those minus signs in, you can format it however you want. You can do right click of formatting, and you could make it so that, you know, the number signs, you can make however many decimal places you want. You can make with or without commas. You can make the negatives red. You can make the negatives in parentheses, you know, like that. Whatever you want, you can do. And there's just about infinite options when it comes to formatting beyond this. So really want to make sure that your numbers are only numbers, and that they're positive and negative the way that Excel will recognize that. So let's say we want to find the maximum that's in this column. That is really useful if you're a US citizen and you need to file an FBAR. You can download your bank transactions, and then you can do equals max, open parentheses, highlight the whole column where all of your your balances, your daily balances are, close parentheses, hit enter, and that's going to find the maximum number in this whole column. Now here it's very easy for me to just look at it and see, but if I had, a few, let's say 500 lines of transactions, it would be less obvious. So this can be very helpful. You can find the maximum balance almost instantaneously. Same with average. You are typing an average. You don't even have to type in the whole thing. You can just click. Once you start typing, you can click tab, and just click the tab button, and it fills in whatever is highlighted. And then you can highlight, just choose whatever you want it to average. And if I click enter without close parentheses, it assumes that I wanted to close the parentheses, and it'll go ahead and do that. And then the last one that is very useful is round. And why is that so useful? Once you learn what all the other things are called, there are infinite possibilities. You can also click here, and Excel will help you find whatever you're looking for. You can skim through the most common use things. I use if a lot, recently used, or you can just, look through whatever you think you might need, and it'll help you format it. So let's say I want to use an if. Sorry, there, if. I click OK, and it tells me exactly what I need to input, and it basically builds the formula for me.